quick and practical way to run your MLflow server. Let's get started. Almost forgot. At the end of the video, I'm about to share with you a secret for an even faster and easier way to use MLflow server. The only one thing that you're going to need for this tutorial is Docker. So you have to install Docker engine on your machine. We have a lot of video already about that, so you can take a look there and get started. Once you have Docker installed, only other requirements that we will have is being able to bind a port on your host. So for instance, if you're running on your machine, Docker will be everything you need, right? So let's get started. The first thing we need is a persistent layer, right? So just to avoid to have a toy deployment, I'm proposing you an adaptable scenario where you prepare for going production. So you need a persistent layer that in this case is provided by an object storage that we need to set up and to deploy. That is an S3 compatible object storage called min.io. And the other one is going to be a database, so MySQL in this case. But please notice that these are modules that you can substitute whenever you go in production with any other pre-provisioned endpoint, right? Just to be clear. So you see here the S3 module service, if you wish, that is going to mount a volume, and that volume will be the base persistent area for the min.io server that will load that image, and we'll also start with the command that we put in the service right here. All right, cool. One last thing, we need some secrets for the authentication with the object storage, and this will be provided right away via s3.env file. Let's open it and see what happens. So yeah, we pass essentially just two environment variables. This is the very basic implementation. So we pass in a username and a password. Simple like that. It's a local one, so we do not need to be extra careful, but remember to change it if you go in production later. Then we have the database. The database is okay, just also consider that we are going to put another volume into work because we need also the information of the database that in MLflow is used to collect all your dependencies and informations about your experiments. We create a new volume for that. Now it's time to build an image for our MLflow server because we need to be able to write into this S3 object our artifacts that can be your machine learning model or whatever. And you also need to be able to recover the status of your experiments through the SQL database. How you do that? We go and create a Docker file. So we need to build our image for our MLflow server. And to do that, you should simply go to and create a Docker file. And it will be very, very, very basic. As I promised, this will be really your first, maybe second instantiation of MLflow. So you want this to be as simple as possible. We start from a Python 3.9 image, and then we install 3 components, 4 actually, that are needed. MLflow, PyMySQL, Boto3, and cryptography. So if we now run this, and we say docker build buildx dot, so now everything should start building up, and we eventually, I already ran this, so you will eventually install all these components. You don't need this step because we are going to build the Docker file automatically from inside the Docker Compose. So let's see how this is possible. We need just to, You go back to the Docker Compose and go down to MLflow. So you remember that above we have images called like this. Now we can specify, look, I want you to build the image for me, and look at the dot path, so the current position, and install it looking for Dockerfile, file called Dockerfile. So far so good. Call this image that you build MLflow server, container name the same. We put all our environment variable this time to mlflow.env, and we expose. The only service that we are going to expose in Docker Compose will be the MLflow server that is running on port 5000. And then I need, this is not really needed if you want to run on your own private machine, but anyhow, just to show you how you can introduce a basic authentication for MLflow, we are going to use, again, the basic authentication and expose our MLflow server with capabilities to store artifacts on S3 and the backend on MySQL, right? So this is the status. And we are going to mount the secrets for the authentication and a space for the authentication DB, right? A persistent layer for that. What this actually means, so we missed just one final point, that is the mlflow.env. Get the credentials to access the S3 storage and the MLflow endpoint for S3. So these are all the options to contact the S3 backend. All right, we missed something else. Yes, we missed the basic out ini. Basic out ini will be the full permissions, everything you need to set at the MLflow level, including the authentication that you want to use, so and authorization that you want to use. So you want to allow only the admin user with a MLflow password as a password and having a basic request. So username and password authentication. Simple like that. Cool. So that's all, guys. I think we are ready to go because you see here we have MLflow, DB, and S3. These are, let me put this in big screen. Yeah, everything we have is here. And now, if we are going to go ahead and doing Docker Compose app, the magic will happen. Let's take a look. All right, ready for the magic? Let's type Docker Compose app. Now everything should start, and the MLflow server is going to be built from your Docker file, as we saw last time. So let's get started. So we are attaching to all the session. Let's put this in. So we have the server that is started, and yeah, I think everything looks nice. So the database bootstrap correctly. Yeah, we should be good to go. But there are no other ways to test it than taking a look. So I'm working on a remote machine. Let me check if this is going to work. We are fine. Exactly. So now, if I remember correctly, should go admin MLflow. Yes. And here you have, yeah, completely working model. And that's all. So you have everything that you need. Now, one good point that you have is how I use this, or why, if I need really a quick experimentation, why I do need to install a database or object storage? So the answer is pretty simple. You don't need that. And we are actually going to look at the quicker solution that you can imagine. We are setting up a JupyterLab instance with a JupyterLab desktop app. And then from there, we go ahead installing MLflow Server directly in an interactive way and running them with a simple command. Everything is local, you have no external components, so it's the bare minimum that you might want to have to test MLflow. So first thing first, you need to install JupyterLab application for desktop. I suggest you to use this because it's very handy. So you just look for JupyterLab desktop, and then you have go to the first link to the Jupyter, and then from here you can see it's simply an Electron application, Electron-based application that substitute the usual browser interface that you are used to. So you get all the installer you have. I use, for instance, the ARM64 because it's the one for my Apple Silicon, but you choose whatever you want. After that, you should be able to call your application just like this. And the cool thing is that you can store all your remote session with a Jupyter Hub or wherever it's stored, or you have also a local session. So you can, if you want to spin up a functional notebook, you can simply start and do your recent session on a local environment. And voila, I have my Jupyter Lab that is opening just where I left, right? With pip, conda, whatever you want. So we have now MLflow installed. And really, I promise you that this will be the easiest way possible. So just takes just right pip MLflow server, right? And here it is. You now have perfectly functioning uh, web server that you can check here, that you can check localhost 0.0.0.0 Voila, you have your machine learning tracking server up and running with two words, right? If you wouldn't have the package installed, it should be possible to install it with MLflow like this, right? See, I have this already installed, I don't need it. Cool, now we are ready to take a look at how MLflow works, but we already have, but for that we have the last live where we execute some example directly, and I'm just going to refer to that. So we take our example, connect to the local server that we just instantiated. So MLflow.set tracking URI, and then here the URI, right? So HTTP localhost 5000. Oops, forgot parentheses, and that's all. And then we need some model, right? So we want to import a scikit-learn library to do our stuff, and a pandas to load our dataset. It won't be anything too much fancy, right? It will be like loading an arrays dataset, splitting train and test set, setting some parameters, and then doing a logistic regression. Simple like this. So we go ahead, we run this part, and okay, that's fine. Then we miss one important point, that is essentially creating our experiment. So already now, if we do set experiment API request fail authentication. Sorry, HTTP. This. Right. This should work, right? Let me check. All right, experiment set. So we need to take a look now, and we have our experiment. Cool, first step. Then there is another step where we need to say, okay, start the run and do my machine learning stuff. So log my parameters. I start my first experiment and my first run. I want to log for this run all the parameters for this model. And in particular, I want to give a tag to this and also store the accuracy of my final training, or the behavior of the accuracy during the training. Yeah, eventually, I want also to infer the model to test, and having the definition here allowing me to say, okay, I want this linear regression called iris model in the artifact storage, and want this to be executed against train. So let's give it a try. And if we are going back to here, we see that a run has been started, and we can see it went. So you have your model stored. And example, let me put this, increase the size. So you see, I store an artifact for this run where I have all my models and also a way to recover my model to do inference from scratch, basically. And then I have a metrics, and within metrics I have my accuracy. Of course, I'm running and testing on the same thing. That's just by, for an example, I can recover the parameters that I use, and so on and so forth. I hope you enjoyed the video. If you did, please don't forget to subscribe and stay tuned for the next one.